decks that aren't really playing to the board and have a lot more just kind of individual removal spells. And the decks that it preys upon, which are just kind of other streamlined aggro decks, are a lot less prevalent in the metagame. But the core of the deck is still quite powerful. Just not quite as good as it was metagame-wise, in my opinion, as it was 7 or 8 months ago.
VanMeter starts with an Overgrown Tomb. He's at 18, going to play an Elvish Mystic past the turn back. Jessup is going to reveal his deck very quickly. Island plus Judge's Familiar means only one thing. Chris going to play a Sylvan Caryatid, only one land in his hand. You see a copy of Polakranos. There's a Rampager hiding out there as well. Jessup is going to start by attacking for 1. VanMeter is going to go down to 17. Jessup does have an island. This is a Tide Binder Mage. Down goes Elvish Mystic, and Mutavault is the card drawn here for CVM.
And how good is Tide Binder Mage in this spot with Chris missing his second land drop and all? As good as it gets.
Yeah. Mutavault is the land that Chris will play. Gonna tap some mana, gonna play an Elvish Mystic. Follow it up with a Scavenging Ooze, so still a pretty good start here for Chris.
And as you mentioned, this is the kind of draw from Chris and the kind of matchup where Polakranos is just at its best.
Jessup with the Mutavault in his hand for his third land. Looks like he also has a copy of Thassa to play here, so it looks like a pretty good hand here from Jessup. Again, Mono Blue Devotion, a deck that has trended downward in a big way, given the success that it has had over the past, I'd say, 6 months. Just hasn't really been putting up those big numbers recently. But this could be a tournament for it to do really well. With Jund Monsters being a top deck, Mono Blue Devotion, I feel personally, has a pretty good matchup against Jund Monsters.
There's, especially with these decks moving to Abrupt Decay, your Master Ways is a little more stable than it was in some of the post-board games before.
Also, they have cards like Main Deck Rakdos' return for trying to prepare for mirror matches and control decks in the mid-range format that we're moving into. This could be a prime weekend for Mono Blue Devotion, as VanMeter is going to take a draw here.
I feel like in all of Standard, there's no deck that's the clear-cut best thing to be doing, and a lot of it is just metagame sensitivity. Are you picking the right moment to break out the deck?
Sure.
Is your 59th and 60th card the correct one for the opponents you're expecting to play against? Doesn't feel like there's a clear-cut best thing to be doing.
VanMeter picked up another copy of Mutavault. As powerful as that card is, one thing it doesn't do is tap for colored mana. Now, Sylvan Caryatid, he'll be relying on in a big way here, and you see Chris is going to take his time, figure out the best line of play. He does have 2 copies of Polakranos in his hand. He also has a Gorkland Rampager as well. See what he wants to deploy, see how he wants to go about trying to win this game.
He may be just determining whether or not he wants to offer up the Scavenging Ooze for the Tide Binder page. Because otherwise, his turn's fairly straightforward. He's just going to be casting his Polakranos, I feel like.
This could certainly get a little bit interesting. You know, he could also, potentially attack with the Elvish Mystic as well to try to induce. And then Rampager there. Is that the best line of play? His play could also be, for example, play my Mutavault, activate my Mutavault, get in with the Mystic, the Ooze and the Mutavault, and dare you to block. It definitely is interesting, I think.
He has a couple different paths it's worth considering, but I think this line of play is the best one afforded to Chris.
I think this is the most clear-cut one, that's for sure.
Gives him the most blockers and gets Polakranos in play, most importantly.
Jessup's going to take a look at the top card here. It's scry time for Thassa. Jessup looking at a copy of Rapid Hybridization in his hand as well. You have to imagine that's going to play a pretty big role in this game. It's the spells that kind of catch people off guard from Mono Blue Devotion. And again, they don't have a lot of copies of, that effect in Rapid Hybridization. Some people play Cyclonic Rift, but it's not like they're playing 4 Rifts. You're going to play around them a bunch. There's only 1 in Jessup's deck list.
The deck can't afford to play that many spells, of course, because it's just trying to add permanence to the board and add to its devotion count.
Yeah.
So it can only afford a few, but they are high impact because the deck generates so much tempo from its creatures.
The spells Jessup does have this particular weekend: 2 copies of Bind the Thassa, 3 copies of Rapid Hybridization, a Cyclonic Rift, and a Hall of Triumph. He's going to play a Cloudfin Raptor to start things off here. That'll be the 5th devotion necessary for the Thassa. So the God of the Sea is on, and it looks like it wants to attack. Looks like Judge's Familiar will come in as well. If VanMeter have any interest in blocking, we will see. You see Jessup's hand right now is that copy of Rapid Hybridization along with a Bident of Thassa.
And Chris turning down an opportunity to chump block there. And that's a meaningful line of play against Mono Blue Devotion. Because Thassa, of course, has the unblockable power, you often have to preemptively chump block because you may not get spots to do it down the line.
Yeah. And VanMeter going to draw his card for the turn. Again, you see those copies of Mutavault. You see the Rakdos return picked up right now. A new addition to his deck. This is not the matchup for that card, though. Certainly not the situation.
It feels roughly as good as Gore Clan and Rampager would be. They're close in this spot.
In this spot, they are close.
It's not clear that one's better than the other. I probably would rather draw a Rampager here, given the way the game is shaping up and you have a Scavenging Ooze in play, but...
And that annoying Judge's Familiar.
Oh, yeah. Curse you.
Now, what's interesting here is I think Jessup is setting up. You mentioned the no chump block there from Chris with the Caryatid, which, kind of makes sense. Or the Polakranos as well. The Caryatid providing red mana. Polakranos is a 5/5, has a lot of utility in this particular matchup. You think about Jessup being able to get that damage through the 5 with the Thassa. VanMeter is at a very round 10. And what Jessup might be able to do on the very next turn, at the end of VanMeter's turn, is Rapid Hybridization as Thassa, make a 3/3, evolve the Cloudfin Raptor, and with the unblockability, be able to maybe just get the job done right away.
This may be one of the games where Chris has all of the resources and tools, but not enough time.
Yeah. Chris is going to come across here with Polakranos and Scavenging. You see Jessup look at his hand for a moment, consider his blocks, and says, sure. How much would you like to deal to me?
And I think you would have seen a chump block from Chris last turn if one of those Mutavaults was, say, a Blood Crypt. If it wasn't his only source of red mana.
Yeah.
But with a Rampager in hand, it's just too important for him to have that red mana.
7 damage gets dealt. Jessup goes down to 11. Again, you see VanMeter looking at the Rakdos return, the Polakranos, and the Rampager in his hand. All he can do is just pass the turn back and try to bluff from Will Spell. Jessup does not fire off that copy of Rapid Hybridization.
Well, I think right now they're doing the dance here where Dan does not want to use it until Chris fights, and Chris doesn't want to fight until the last possible second.
Yeah. Tidebinder Mage. That's going to come in. It goes without saying how powerful that card is in this matchup.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to have an Evolve trigger on the stack. And we'll also see what Jessup wants to target with the Tidebinder Mage, assuming that this does resolve. Looks like VanMeter may have a response here, or at least trying to bluff a response.
Well, this might be the spot if he's going to fight, if Cloudfin Raptor is part of how he wants to distribute. Because, for example, he can fight the Judge's Familiar and the Raptor right now. So this might be the spot where he wants to pull the trigger.
Decisions for number 1 on our Season 2 leaderboard here on the Open Series. This, on the stack, it looks like. Of course, VanMeter, no removal spells, so. See Jessup going to hand that over to the judge. Might be a little bit of question as to exactly how this card works. Does it have to target? All that good stuff. Evolution trigger.
Yeah, he has to announce the target with the evolution on the stack, so Chris knows what's being hit here.
Jessup looks like he may be going after the Scavenging Ooze, but again, weighing his decision very heavily. Very, very important part of the game here for Danny. Looks a little unsure of himself on what he wants to target, what he wants to do, and how he wants to go about using this Rapid Hybridization. I believe he does have the tools to win because he does have an active Thassa. We all know how powerful that card is. So, evolution not complete just yet. So VanMeter says, all right, this is locked. This is my Polakranos. Now, do I want to fire away and try to take down your Judge's Familiar and your Cloudfin Raptor? Do I have any other choice?
Well, he can fight some other Tidebinder Mage.
That's true, too. And you could also make the argument of, I'm just supposed to leave these blockers back to block,
Because if Danny taps out to, say, activate Thassa here, and he's only got 2 mana left over, then things become very easy for Chris. So Chris may be happy enough with the way this game is being paced to say, okay, I'll let you have these little pieces of advantage. If you ever tap out, I'm going to go ahead and use Polakranos to fight or do something else major. But the way the game is shaping up, this is okay. If you want to attack with just Thassa, not make anything unblockable, I'll just chump block your Thassa, take a point of damage, and untap and attack you with a lot of stuff.
Well, here come the attackers. Judge's Familiar, 1/1. Cloudfin Raptor, a 1/2. Thassa, a 5/5. We didn't see Chris chump block last turn. I got to imagine we will this turn.
Yep. And Danny not using his unblockable mana means that he's representing something, and I think Chris can safely deduce it's either Rapid Hybridization or Cyclonic Rift.
Yeah.
And both players have been dancing around this for several turns, but I think Danny knows that Chris knows, and Chris knows that Danny has it.
Yeah, that's the fun part here. So we're kind of here looking over the match, and it's like, oh, it's pretty clear. These players have these cards in hand, and what are we even thinking about here? But when you think of Mono Blue, again, they have a small number of spells in their deck, but they have spells that you definitely have to play around because those cards are very high impact. And the same can be said for Jessup playing into Jund Monsters. Yeah, this deck doesn't have a lot of instant speed removal, but how does an Abrupt Decay have an effect on this game? It has a huge one.
Yes. he has to be worried about losing his devotion count at instant speed at a moment's notice, because if he ever loses a Thassa attack in this whole sequence, the race is probably irreversibly damaged.
It's a disaster.
Yeah, he can't win anymore. So
you see all this jockeying position, and now Chris, I think, is deciding, okay, what am I supposed to chump block with? Am I supposed to chump block at all? Can I afford to? It looks like he's taking all of the damage, which seems a little bit risky. Bullet Kronos is going to go active now. Looks like my assumptions are probably try to take down the Time Biter Mage that locked it down. Rapidization is going to give Chris a 3-3. Now, why is that important? He does get a 3-3. Now, Scavenging Ooze can get a little bit bigger. You can gain a little bit of life. You know, all of these things end up mattering quite a bit here. Can Chris actually kill him on the attack? I'm not entirely sure that's the case, but can he stay alive? That might be true.
it's going to be tough. I mean, he's taking 5 to the jaw for sure from this Thassa, plus there's some flyers in play. He's got a lot of life to gain here.
VanMeter draws a card. It's a copy of Blood Crypt.
Now, Blood Crypt may change things a little bit, as it allows him to both cast Rakdos Return and Blood Rush the Rampager. He now has a second source of red mana.
And he goes from 3 to 1, not 2 to 0. And now he knows as well, he doesn't have to worry about any spells, because the only thing that's available is Mutavault, and then the 2 Tidebinder Mages. So he can probably, figure out what he needs to do. The question is, can he get the job done?
I am surprised last turn that Chris did not throw out a chump block with the Elvish Mystic and then activate Palakronos. It felt, saving the 5 damage there seems really important to me. He may not get a chance to do it next turn because he can't keep Danny off of Devotion or block the Thassa, of course. Danny can just make Thassa unblockable. You can still activate Palakronos inside of combat, and you put another creature in the graveyard for Scavenging Ooze in the worst case.
VanMeter's going to go down to 1. Fires up a Mutavault. It looks like it might be time to attack here. And now the really interesting thing is that Rakdos Return, it being Rakdos Return, not the 4th Gorkline Rampager, is that coming back to hurt him?
That would be perfect.
If that was another copy of Gorkline Rampager instead of the Rakdos Return, we'd be able to do a little double Blood Rush action.
Because if the second copy of Palakronos in his hand with the Rakdos Return, that would be fine. In fact, it's better in this spot.
Sure. So VanMeter is going to grab some creatures and turn these sideways and try to figure out, is there any way that I can maybe induce Danny to make a bad block? Will he play around Rampager? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is lethal attack with the Rampager. He has to block something.
Yep.
So now Jessup has to be worried. All right, what if I block here and then he has an Abrupt Decay for my other Tidebinder Mage? Then I'm in a world of trouble.
Yeah, there's a lot to play around from on both player sides here. Although Chris is in the spot now where he can't play around anything. He's kind of hand up, and he has to put the ball in Danny's court and hope that he messes up on the blocks or plays around something that Chris doesn't have.
Pretty much. I think what Chris is trying to do here is say, you got to block with both your Tidebinder Mages. Please block with both your Tidebinder Mages. I need you to block with both your Tidebinder Mages. And will he do that?
And then Devotion gets shut off in that world, too.
Yeah. Not to say that it can't be turned back on, but this is a tough situation here for Jessup, too, because, Jessup is a turn away from winning, presumably.
And if he blocks with only 1 Tidebinder Mage, then Rampager plus Abrupt Decay kills him, too. That's another factor here.
Rampager plus Rampager gets the job done, stuff like that. So, he has to be very, very concerned.
Yeah, and he can play around double Rampager if he blocks with both Tidebinder. It leaves him at exactly 1. So this is a tough block.
And now, see, before he only had 1 Tidebinder Mage he was grabbing at, now he's grabbing at 2.
He dies to a lot of stuff by only blocking with 1. 2 Rampagers, as you mentioned, or Abrupt Decay Rampager kill him. Because he can Abrupt Decay the Tidebinder Mage and then Gorkline Rampager, whichever creature got blocked by the Tidebinder Mage, to give a trample.
And you have to imagine with, how popular Chris is, and that Chris plays Jund monsters, that.
Yes.
Everyone knows his deck list. Maybe Danny doesn't know about the Rakdos' Return, but everyone knows that for the past couple of weeks, Chris has been starting Abrupt Decay in some numbers. That he has Rampager. He's a big fan of that card. He doesn't play Reaper of the Wild. So now Danny's trying to think of, okay, I guess I have to block with both of my creatures, which is exactly what Chris needs him to do, because now all Chris can do is he can just say, all right, I will activate Ooze, gain a life, go up to 2s. I can activate Ooze again, gain a life, go up to 3, and all of a sudden I'm not dying because Thassa's off and you have 2 1-power flyers.
Well, Thassa might be off.
Yeah, no guarantee.
Not hard to reestablish.
No guarantee. What do you do? There are your blocks. One on Mutavault, one on Scavenging Ooze. Is it appropriate for VanMeter Rampager here? I don't think that's the case. I think that Chris has to leave some blockers back. You see he's going to do a bunch of math. And the reason I don't want a Rampager is because I can't get him dead, so I just want to keep my life total high.
Yes.
That's all I care about. I can remove the Pull of Chronos, go up to 2, beat the Tidebinder Mage in combat. The other Tidebinder Mage will trade with the Mutavault. That'll give me another creature in the graveyard, which allows me to go up to 3 so I don't die to the Flyers. And presumably I will have the ability to block the Thassa, assuming a Frostburn Weird or another Tidebinder Mage doesn't come rolling off the top of the deck, which truthfully I might not be able to beat anyway.
No, Chris is totally liable to the top of Danny's deck. He has no way to interact with anything. So if Thassa gets reestablished, that's game. Off of a 2-mana spell.
VanMeter's going to go up to 2. Ooze is going to beat Mage in combat. Again, Chris doesn't have to worry about any spells from Jessup because there's just a Mutavault in play. So now will we let damage resolve?
And keep in mind, Danny still is basically representing lethal because he has his 2 power worth of flyers. He can activate Mutavault and make that unblockable.
Yep. Mutavault goes back in the row.
So on board, Chris can't get out of this.
But does Danny know that? That's the question. His focus might be on turning his Thassa back on and not activating Mutavault and making it unblockable. Danny's going to take a look at the top card of his hand. His hand right now has 2 copies of Biden of Thassa. Yes, he can turn his Thassa back on, but he can't make his Thassa unblockable. Chris will be able to chomp, activate Scavenging Ooze, gain the necessary life. So Jessup is going to take a look at the top card of his deck. He's going to draw that card. It's a copy of Frostburn Weird. And that might make things a little bit easier now because what he can do is he can play Frostburn Weird, he can evolve his Cloudfin Raptor, and his Thassa will be on and make it unblockable to kill him.
So he essentially has 2 lethal attackers in that world. But what happens if he does that and Chris has Abrupt Decay, then he can Abrupt Decay the Raptor, Thassa gets shut off. Because I think the way that it's set up, if you're playing around Abrupt Decay, your best bet is to activate the Mutavault because that itself cannot be hit with Abrupt Decay. So you make that unblockable. Even if Chris has a removal spell and can gain 1 life, 1 point of flying damage comes across and the Mutavault goes uncontested.
That's true. So if Jessup was concerned about playing around exactly Abrupt Decay, this is not the best line to take.
He loses to Abrupt Decay the way that he's played this. I think if he attacks with just Mutavault, animates Mutavault and makes it unblockable, I believe that's a safer attack. Now he could be playing around a variety of cards right now, so it's not quite that simple, but I do not believe this is the best way to play around Abrupt Decay.
Either way, Frostmourne is going to come into play. Thassa is on now. Devotion is at 5. The Raptor did evolve into a 2/3. And Jessup says, I think I attack with everyone? Man, this would make... Wow, if Thassa doesn't come into the red zone or go unblockable, this would make Abrupt Decay even better. In we go.
Well, attacking with Thassa and making it unblockable plays around nothing extra. Because if this attack works, he wins.
Yep.
And if something gets killed, then Thassa's off anyway.
Yep, that's true. In we go. VanMeter going to look at his hand, and he's going to activate a Scavenging Ooze. Activate a Scavenging Ooze. He's going to go up to... Oh, boy. He goes up to 4, down to 1.
Yeah, this was some...
Jessup should be here.
Yeah, this I think is why I would have just animated Mutavault and shipped both the flyers here, because Chris could only go... The only lines of play that Chris can do is go to 4 by activating my Scavenging Ooze a couple times, and Danny is attacking for exactly 4, or he can gain 1 life and cast Abrupt Decay, and the attack with an unblockable Mutavault and 2 1-power flyers plays around either scenario. It's either 4 points of damage or 3 points of damage and losing 1 creature to an Abrupt Decay. So I think...
Here's the question. Can VanMeter kill him this turn? Because he has to kill him this turn. I feel like Chris was just given another turn to play.
Yes, I think so too.
Because through all of the calculations and things that I think Jessup was playing around, I think he missed what you could argue is the most obvious, which is, I can just gain 2 life.
Yep.
And I can't kill him. And now VanMeter, maybe Jessup thought, oh, he can only go up to 3, when the truth is, actually he can go up to 4. And so now he's down to 1. And 1 is not none. So now VanMeter has to get these 8 points of damage through. I feel like he has to do that. He's going to fire up a Mutavault here. And now he's going to send everybody into the red zone. Here we go. Now, if you're Jessup, you have to know, okay, this is quite clearly a Rampager. The big thing here is that the Rampager, wherever it goes, sure, that's the case. The other thing that's huge here is that Scavenging Ooze can remove the Rampager to gain a life, but more importantly, get +1/+1.
Yeah, this is a really tough block. And now, it's definitely evident that there's no Abrupt Decay because Chris would have done that before
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
any of this happened.
Uh-huh.
We can rule out Mizium Mortars, Dreadbore, any sort of removal spell.
It's so easy when you're the eyes in the sky, and we can see everything that's happening. It gets a lot harder when you're down there actually playing the games and thinking about everything your opponent could have. Mutavault's going to go active here. If you block the 3 biggest creatures, what happens? You get in front of an Ooze, you get in front of the Frog Lizard, you get in front of a Mutavault. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But you have to imagine because of Trample, you can do things a little bit differently here.
I mean, if we're just talking about saving damage, it's the block that Danny's making right now. Thassa goes in front of Ooze, the 1/4 goes in front of the 3/3, and the Mutavault goes in front of a Mutavault.
Sure.
And that leaves 2 coming across. So the Ooze is 1 over right now. 2/3 from the Elves is 3. Rampager is 4 is 7. Activate the Ooze is 8. I think this is exact lethal.
If he rampages on the Ooze?
Yeah, and removes with Ooze. Because 2 points are coming. Assuming the Ooze gets trampled. Oh, no, it's 5-5 right now. He might be short 2.
I think he's short 1.
Yeah, he's short 1. I thought the Ooze was a 6-6. No, it was a 5-5. So I think he's short 1, the way this all breaks.
Because if we +4/+4 the Ooze, it becomes a 9, remove it, it becomes a 10. 10 minus 5 is 5, 6, 7.
Yep.
If we do it on the Frostburn Weird, it becomes a 3, or excuse me, on the Frog Lizard, 3 becomes a 7. 7 minus 4 is 3, 4, 5.
The most efficient thing for him to give trample to has to be, right now, the Scavenging Ooze, because everything is even power to even toughness or worse, and the Ooze can continue to pump.
Sure.
So Scavenging Ooze is the best target for the Rampager. And it's even right now, yeah, he's a point short.
Looks like somebody's a point short. Yeah, and VanMeter, you can see him kind of shrugging his shoulders, show his hand, and said, I can't kill you. And so that's going to do it. Danny Jessup is going to win game number 1. You see some frustration on VanMeter's face that he's a point short. He was given an extra turn and not able to get the job done. So Mono Blue Devotion up a game over Jund Monsters.
And if only that Rakdos return was a 4th Rampager. Chris.
Let's take a look
Couldn't have scripted it any better.
Let's take a look at the sideboards here. You've got Chris's in front of you. I'll let you begin.
A Doomblade, a Vraska, a Mizium Mortars, a Rakdos Return, 2 copies of Putrified, 2 Golgari Charm, 2 Nylea's Disciple, 2 copies of Abrupt Decay, 3 Mistcutter Hydras. The 3 Mistcutter Hydras, of course, coming in this matchup. And I think just in general, you want more removal spells against this deck. You want the Abrupt Decays, the Doomblades, the Mizium Mortars. Not all of these removal spells are the most efficient thing to be doing. Mizium Mortars fails some percentage of the time, and it's susceptible to rapid hybridization because of the sorcery and all that, but just removal and Mistcutter Hydras I think is a good game plan for Chris.
Other side of things, we've got 3 Dissolve, 2 Gainsay, 2 Negate, 2 Dispel. A lot of counter spells here in Jessup's sideboard, along with 2 Jace Architect of Thought, a Domestication, a Jace Memory Adept, a additional copy of Cyclonic Rift, an additional copy of Rapid Hybridization. And those spells are the ones I think that are going to come in. You've got the Rapid, you've got the Cyclonic, you can argue Domestication. The rest of these cards, though, these counter spells, I don't think we have any interest in any of that.
Nope. Just stuff that's better at playing to the board,
Yep.
I think is what Danny wants for this
You
matchup.
definitely want these Bidens out of your deck after sideboard. You can make an argument for Wine Hall of Triumph out of your deck. I don't think there's going to be a lot of changes here at all.
No, just a little bit more tempo. His game 1 setup is pretty good, it feels like.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with that overall. Again, I still feel like this is a pretty good matchup for Mono Blue Devotion, especially with how Jund Monsters is evolving, which is to beat other mid-range and control decks and not really trying to beat aggressive decks. However, the aggressive deck that it is trying to beat, which is Burn, that is not, you don't try to beat Burn the same way you try to beat Mono Blue Devotion.
Yeah, you need to be playing to the board. Against Burn, a couple points of life gain is enough to swing the matchup. Against Mono Blue Devotion, that's not going to really matter. If you're at 24 versus 20, but they're able to execute their game plan, they're still going to beat you. So the tools that you want there are different.
If you are just joining us, Cedric Phils, Patrick Sullivan, Star Stadium's Open Series here in Providence, Rhode Island at SCG Live, hashtag SCGPROV for your tweets. We've already had fun talking about hippos. If you missed that, shame on you. That's really too bad. But we'll have some more fun conversations over the course of this weekend, so do chime in on Twitter as we make our way through 10 rounds of action here. We'll see how many rounds of action we have in our Legacy Open before Season 2 Invitational next weekend in Columbus, Ohio. Already.
Again, it happens so fast.
Yeah.
And then Las Vegas the next week.
Well, hopefully that doesn't happen too fast. I want that to be a nice, slow, but fun weekend. I want it to be memorable.
What are you doing Sunday night?
My job. I'll be doing this Sunday night.
No, but the show will end in Vegas, or probably around midnight. There's a certain music festival that's going on. I'm not sure if you have any interest. We'll talk about it.
Oh, EDC?
Yeah.
That's not my scene. There's no train there.
It's not my scene either, but that doesn't matter.
Yeah, I hear it's a lot of fun. I'm kind of old, so
You're 5 years younger than I am.
I'm kind of old, so I'm not really sure if that's my scene so much. Cloudfin Raptor to begin here for Jessup. You saw VanMeter lead off with a stomping ground coming to play tapped. He's going to play a forest. He's got an accelerator in Sylvan Carrington. He will pass the turn back over to Jessup, who will draw a card. It's a Tidebinder Mage. That can't lock anything down. Looks like Jessup's mana. I was going to say it's a little awkward, but he does have the second island. He's got Nykthos and a Mutavault in his hand right now.
It was looking hairy there for a second there. Yeah. Nykthos usually a one-of in these lists.
We got a Tidebinder Mage. Again, not tapping anything, but it is important that you actually do curve out here so we can get the damage going, build the devotion for the Master of Waves or Thassa. VanMeter going to draw a copy of Mistcutter Hydra. I believe that's the second one that he does have in his hand right now. You also see a Dreadbore hanging out over there. It does have the necessary mana to cast these spells. We'll just see what order he wants to cast them in.
I'm curious to see if Chris is willing to take 2 to make it 3/3 Mistcutter and just start getting in. It's the most aggressive play. He has the alternative of just Dreadboring and building his mana. And I like this from Chris. Make a bigger Mistcutter and also just not take the 2 damage.
Also slow down that devotion as well. Good draw there from Jessup. Picks up an island for the Frostburn Weird that he does have in his hand. And he is going to deploy, for the Nightveil Spectre, he will deploy that and attack for 2.
And you see Danny's hand here with land and Master of Waves. So if Chris is not able to find a removal spell, even back-to-back Mistcutter Hydras are not going to be enough to race.
And he needs to get this show on the road. He's got to do it pretty quick here. Stomping Ground is going to come into play untapped. VanMeter going to lose 2 more. There's a Mistcutter Hydra. That's a 4/4. We're going into the red zone. It's time to go race, and Jessup's going to go down to 16.
And now Chris is going to be really put to the test here. And this Nykthos is net mana right now, so Danny can actually play Judge's Familiar as well.
Oh, living the dream.
Which seems seems silly here, but it's actually important because that means Chris cannot respond next turn with an overloaded Mizium Mortars. So the Judge's Familiar does provide an appreciable amount of insurance.
Start by attacking. In for 4. Trigger. Give me a forest. Nightveil Spectre says. Jessup already played his land for the turn to Nykthos. The Nykthos is much more important anyway. This is 4 mana. Jessup gonna use the Judge's Familiar first. Follow this up. Master of Waves. Trigger, here come the Water Horse using a whole bunch. You see Jessup count up the devotion. We'll do the same. 3, 4, 5, 6 elementals on the way.
It's a lot. And now, again, not even Mistcutter Hydra back-to-back turns is necessarily going to be enough here for Chris if he can't find a removal spell.
You mentioned Mizium Mortars is kind of out the window as well. Gorkland Rampager is the draw. That's not going to get the job done.
Master of Waves does not, against old versions of Jund monsters was not the most reliable thing, but now with so many of them moving to Abrupt Decay, it does stick more often than it did a couple months ago.
Yeah, when Jund Monsters was initially built, and I kind of gave it a run in the PTQ, one of the cards I was playing was Gruul Charm.
Yeah.
Just because, I just didn't feel the Mono Blue matchup was good enough. Now, Mono Blue has definitely trended downwards in a big way. So VanMeter's going to pick up his cards. Jessup's going to win this match 2-0. But it's kind of funny because Mono Blue has been doing so poorly recently. I think people aren't even sideboarding against it to beat it. But when it has draws like that, it's one of the best decks in the format. Yeah,
it's still super good, super efficient. And there's a lot of decks in the post-board games, especially these 3-color junk constellation style decks where your game plan of get on the board and then have counter spells for your big finisher, that's going to be hard to beat too.
Yep.
A lot of the suppression of Mono Blue Devotion just has to do with, the Mono Black matchup, in my opinion, is not great. And Supreme Verdict's a hard card for you to play against. You can board into a deck that has some game against it, but game 1 is really hard.
Yep.
But those decks are overall trending downward. The metagame is starting to expand a little bit, and Mono Blue Devotion is really powerful against the majority of the theoretical field. It's just not very good against Supreme Verdict and Mono Black.